Okay, let's get started. Today is Monday, January 7th, 2019. This is the Kubernetes CSI implementation meeting. And let's go ahead and, since Patrick, you have to leave early, let's go with your items.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to draw attention to some things that keep coming up now in various repositories, and that's around consistently building the images. We discussed that a while back, and we came up with an approach, but it's currently implemented separately in each of the sidecars. So I started an attempt using the external attacher as an example of build rules that are reusable. It's basically a generic make file, make target, and some scripts, I think, where the only thing that differs among the different repos is some configuration, like the name of the images and the executables that need to be copied into them. That's this external attacher pull request 109. And yeah, my long-term thought was to make that somehow reusable also in the other repositories. The question is just, how do we get the files into the other repositories? That's one of the open issues. And since then, I've seen several other people also doing work that needs to be coordinated among different repos, primarily around static code analysis with Go-Bet or Go-Lint, fixing issues in some repositories, adding tests, for example, to the external provisioner. And I think that's something that also should be done consistently, so that we can say with confidence that all of the code that we release has gone through the same set of checks that we can run. And we have Travis CI set up, or Prow, whatever we decide to use. And we continue doing that for all new repos that we also create. Well, that's the same question. Where do we maintain these rules, and what's specific to each repository? And the last thing that I noticed today is Git Ignore. That's, again, maintained separately in different repos, and I've seen a pull request here for CSI test, which I happen to be co-maintainer of, where someone is adding suppression rules that he found in some other repository and is now adding to CSI test. Yeah, and I think we just need a general agreement among the team how we want to handle that, and then make sure that all repositories follow the same approach. So let's take this one by one. The build rules. One possible approach for sharing the files is to put them into a utility repository. That could be CSI libutils. And then with the dep tool, it is possible to render also with non-Go files. It's getting a bit it's becoming a bit ugly, because you have to disable pruning for the entire repository, I think. And then we end up with vendor github.com Kubernetes CSI libutils.
Can you not have special prune rules just for?
No. Dep supports basically two flags. One is prune the test files, prune non-Go files. And if you disable pruning of a non-Go files, then you end up with these additional files also in your copy. You can't specify wildcards or something like that. That's not supported.
So if the problem, if I understand this correctly, the problem is basically duplication of these files across different repos and having them get out of sync?
Yes, exactly.
How often do they change?
They shouldn't change that often. It would be possible to do it manually. Say, put them somewhere and then let everyone else sync them up manually by copying. But that's doable.
Can you do like a wget and pull the verify scripts from a common repository in each of the make files?
That would also work. But then the main make file is a question of what that should do. If you check out the source code and do make test, where does the test target come from? Or make push, make build, is that already available in the top level build, top level make file? and then dynamically loads it, that wouldn't work from make, I think.
Can we use like, I don't know, Git submodule or subtrees?
Yeah, instead of Git submodules, I probably would just add a custom make target that says make update build rules. I would prefer to have a file, the repository self-contained, like we get it from dep with a vendor tree. Because I think there's value in being able to check it out easily. And Git submodules keep causing issues with that regard.
No, I thought
So
that's, sorry. I was saying that Git subtrees also is another alternative that has.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
And subtrees work much better in my experience than submodule, but I don't know, yeah.
What do other Kubernetes repos do for this?
I don't know.
I have a feeling they just copy paste all the boilerplate. At least to me, it makes sense, like for the verify stuff to verify the formatting and all of that. It makes sense to put that under like some common repository and pull from it. I mean, it would be nice if the make files were also, pulled, but I think we could live with, having the same boilerplate make file in all of the repositories, but just making sure that the make tests and stuff are all the same.
Yeah. Okay, well, I see a certain consensus that we want to have one place where we put that. Should we just choose CSI libutils and create a subdirectory there with, say, build, with the name build, and put those things there, and then figure out some mechanism to pull those files into the different repos?
That seems fine with me.
Okay, and then I'll continue working towards that. Testing then, I guess, can build on top of that base mechanism. Once we know how to put the common things into one repository, how to mirror them into the others, then we can also rebase the external provisioner work, for example, on top of that, and make it a common thing first, and then put it into the different repositories that do testing. Speaking of testing, we are currently using Travis CI a lot. I guess because it's convenient. It's much, in my experience, much easier to set up a Travis CI job than it is to define a Brow job. I'm just wondering whether we should continue doing that, or whether there is value in moving more things to Brow.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's about time we should start looking into that.
I think we'll get a lot more support from SIG testing if we use Prow.
Okay.
And it will make it easier to bring up real clusters to do tests.
Yeah, well, most of these repositories are not using end-to-end testing, so they don't need real clusters, I think.
But we should consider.
We would have the option. That's true. Actually, external provision or external etc. They are currently testing standalone without a cluster, I guess. But that could change. It would be useful to have more advanced testing before putting everything together. Okay, well, I take that as it would be nice to have a consistent way of running tests, because that's kind of the prerequisite for Prow. We don't want to have n different jobs that are all different. If we have one common command that works across different repositories, it will be easier to clone the Prow copy and make it apply. So I see this common build and testing rules as a precursor to moving more things to Prow, because we can't maintain the test of the automatic testing configuration inside each repo, not the same way as we do with a Travis CI YAML file. And Git Ignore, I was about to ask Kurup what the thinking is, well, what should be in the Git Ignore file of each repository. It's inconsistent at the moment because some repositories have ignore files that just list the things that are specific to the project. I think that part makes sense. But some of them also have suppression rules for various code editors, IDEs. I think I'm personally leaning towards removing that because it's very personal and
Yes.
it doesn't make sense. I personally ran into a situation where it didn't have suppression rules for things that I needed. So I've set up my own Git Ignore file a while back instead of extending the Git Ignore files in the different projects.
Yeah, I think this is like an endless list of stuff that will never end.
Yeah. So let's take the position that we want to have repositories limited to things that are project specific, and if someone wants to suppress files generated by his editor, we should just point them to the documentation for how to do that. Okay. The last open issue is more a general question that I have, because this current generic build rules that I have, they implement what we discussed a while back, that is that a tagged image only ever gets built once. It tries to detect that this image already exists, and if it does, it doesn't overwrite an existing image. You have to tag anew to get a new image. But there's one thing that occurred to me that we're not handling with this approach. That's when some of the other input for an image changes, like the underlying OS that we're using as the base Docker image. If we have security issues in those base images, when we have to rebuild basically without a new tag, or if we do a new tag, then there's no change in the repository. It would
No,
just be input.
there is a change in the repository. The Docker file will change.
Do we exactly list a revision of the underlying image? Or do we just pull whatever is tagged as the latest, for example? I think it is always pulling another image of whatever is currently tagged as that, and it's not always guaranteed that this is never going to change.
Then I would still say we should tag a new release, even if the tag is the same, just so that we can rebuild an image.
Even though the context is the same, we just say this is a refresh, and that's therefore a new build. That's fine with me. I was just wondering, but because this situation can't be new, I was just not aware how other people are handling it. I've seen all kinds of approaches, like permanently rebuilding images, like we did with the CSI sidecar containers a while back. But that's clearly too aggressive. But then again, if people pull, I don't know, the latest stable, they somehow might expect refreshes for security issues. Okay, let's stay with the current approach, and then for a better CI system, let's make sure that we actually can do perhaps automated tagging if we have to do a rebuild, or if we can detect that the new rebuild is necessary.
Yeah, I would make it simple and just trigger builds off of Git tags.
Yeah, that's what the current common rules do. If there's a new tag and that branch gets built, then it will generate a new image. I was just thinking whether a future CI system should also flag the need for a new tag, for example, because otherwise we'll never notice unless we actually do a release for other reasons. But that's a future topic then. Anyway, that's good enough for me now.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks. Regarding the other issues that's currently assigned to me, the test the open pull requests, I have a testing as a line item for tomorrow's SIG testing meeting to clarify some of the open questions. So there will be progress on that tomorrow.
Awesome, great.
Okay, bye then.
Bye, Patrick. Okay, let's jump back into the outstanding 113 tasks. So almost all our sidecars are cut for 113. The only remaining sidecar is the cluster driver registrar. The last outstanding item is we need to fix the RBAC and the documentation for the repo, which is currently incorrect. So I think Hamant, you had signed up for this, but I know you have a lot of stuff on your plate. So if you don't have time let us know and we can try to find someone else to pick this up.
Sorry, I was speaking on mute. Okay, yeah, sure. I think yeah, if somebody else has time, those 3 cycles will look into that. That'll be great. Actually, I have a bunch of stuff that I need to look into it.
Does anyone else currently in this meeting have time to take a look at this?
I see that that my name is next to it, so I must have piped up last time. So
Well, I know you have a lot on your plate too, so
yeah, I'm just kind of ramping up for 2019. I need to kind of go back and see what I missed. Well, I'll see if this coincides with anything I'm doing. I'll keep it. If not, I'll take my name off.
all right, no problem. All right, so that's the status of all the sidecars. Next item is the secret logging stuff. So we have all the container images have been pushed and released. So now we just need to make an announcement. I started a discussion with the security team on how exactly we want to send the announcement, and I will try to wrap up with them today so that we can try to send out something tomorrow. And that's all we have on that topic. Next is cleaning up the driver registrar repository. I think Luis pinged me before the meeting. He says he'll work on this today. Next is syncing the host path driver YAMLs. Vlad, do you have an update on this?
No, not right now. Last time I touched this, which was in last year, I think I pretty much finished. I haven't looked at the PR to see what kind of feedback I got. But there's a PR out there that has that work pretty much done. So I'll take a look to see where we're at. And basically what I've done is moved the YAMLs and kind of separated them and moved the project into its own repository. So that's the point that we're going to move forward is having that project into its own repository and with the ability to automatically build itself and then use that as a point for documentation. So I'll report back next time to see where we are with that.
Awesome. Thanks, Vlad.
Yeah.
Next item is updating the PD EtoEs to use the latest sidecars. I think actually we don't really need to track this for 113, but Cheng is doing this as part of the topology EtoEs. Okay, and last item for 113 is updating our documentation.
Docs, yes. I was working on this over the holidays. I took a break. It's an immense amount of work, but I'm still working on it. The PR that I've been working on is out if you want to take a look at it. If you have any suggestions for structure, anything, feel free. But that's still a work in progress. Areas I could use help are specific repo documentation. So Michelle, you created an example of this for, I believe it was the Node driver registrar. If we can do that for other repositories as well, that would be useful because the usage of how you use a particular binary is bound to change over time, and it makes sense to have that checked into the individual repos and linked out from that documentation. So if anyone's interested in helping with that, please let me or Michelle know and we'll point you in the right directions. Otherwise, I'll get this merged and work on that next.
Awesome. And I think actually a lot of the sidecars already have decent documentation in the readmes. So it might not be too bad to revamp those.
Okay.
So that's all we have for 113. Let's jump up. Oh, and there's the blog post. Are we still doing a blog post?
Yes, I'm working on that. And if I think Hemant, there was 2 other blog posts that we had planned. I think there was one on block volume and one for snapshots. So Xing and I think it was, I forget who the person who was working on the block one.
Is it Matt or Ben?
It might have been Ben. So if you're working on a blog post, deadline's coming up pretty soon, so make sure you send out the drafts for that like in the next couple days.
So Jean and I, we have a draft, still trying to finalize it. I think she's already will share that with you to get your feedback.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. Okay, let's jump back up to miscellaneous topics. We talked about these. Let's see, the EtoE tests for snapshots. I think the main blocker here is that Patrick's doing a bunch of refactoring and it's going to cause a bunch of merge conflicts. I think one of Patrick's PRs already went in. There's a second one that he has out, but I think this one might take some more time because there are some design concerns around it. So it might be possible to just rebase the snapshot test off of what's already there, and we can get the snapshot tests in first before Patrick's PR, if that works for you, Xing.
Yeah, sure. We could. Yeah, we can rebase that.
Let me update this. Let's say is it this one? Yeah. So this one has already merged. Okay. Next topic, we have flaky CSI reconstruction tests. And Jing took a look at this and actually found two issues. One issue is very basic in that the volume directory is not cleaned up after the volume is unmounted. So basically, we're not doing volume directory cleanup. Well, okay. It doesn't get unmounted. It doesn't get cleaned up if the driver cleaned up the directory. So maybe this is only a problem with the PD driver. But that's a pretty basic fundamental issue. It has nothing to do with reconstruction.
I was thinking about this a little bit more.
Yeah.
The CSI spec actually says that the responsibility of creating the directory and deleting the directory is the responsibility of the plugin. So technically, the orchestrator shouldn't be the one that's deleting or creating that directory anymore.
Okay.
But we do
I wonder though.
Are these the target directories?
Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
I wonder though if like drivers have already been depending on this behavior, and if we change Kubernetes to do the proper thing, then it's gonna leak a bunch of directories and stuff.
Well, in this case, it sounds like we have not been cleaning up.
Right.
And if we start cleaning up, then it would be counter to the spec.
Yeah, those directories are basically handed off to the driver to be taken care of right now.
So I think per the spec, the driver is basically responsible for creating the directory, mounting it, unmounting it, cleaning it up, and that's it. But we should handle the case where the cleanup doesn't happen correctly.
Yeah, You mean if the driver doesn't clean up?
Yeah, probably.
How would the CO know though that it's not properly?
If there's still content in the directory after you claim that it has successfully finished node unpublish.
Do we return unmount failure or something if the plugin did not clean up the directory?
So if the plugin fails, they have the option of failing the node unpublish call, which is a signal to the CO to say, hey, I wasn't able to clean up, in which case Kubernetes should retry because unmount failed.
Right.
But if the plugin reports success saying, hey, I was able to unmount and clean up, then the assumption per the spec is that, yes, that directory has been deleted. It was created by the plugin and it was deleted by the plugin and it was safely unmounted. And theoretically, the orchestrator should not have to do any additional work. But I think the fact is that there may be plugins that don't do the cleanup properly. And what do we do there? Should we let them leak directories or should we do the cleanup for them?
Currently, we are doing the cleanup for them.
Yeah. And the thing that makes it... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Currently, we're cleaning. If they don't clean up the directory themselves, then we clean it up for them. So if we actually change the behavior to not clean up, then those plugins that were technically getting cleaned up after will no longer be cleaned up after.
I see. And what is this bug about then? If the cleanup is happening, is it in a specific case it doesn't happen?
In this bug, it's if the driver actually cleaned up the directory, then Kubernetes won't clean up the directory.
But that's okay, right?
Oh wait, sorry. I think there's two things going on. So there's two directories, right? There's the mount point.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's the mount point, but then there's a directory above the mount point. And this is where we keep the file, the reconstruction file.
Got it.
Right.
With the mount point information.
Yes. Okay.
The JSON data, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, so we are absolutely responsible for cleaning that up.
Yeah. Right.
So
yeah. So I think that's where this issue is.
Got it.
Talking about.
Okay. So that's definitely a bug.
I think that the other PR that was changing this behavior, I'm looking. It should fix it actually. The other PR that changes this behavior, that makes sure that unmount gets called. So when the cleanup it gets called, was it unmounted or not, Michelle? Like when
So it was. So what happened was that the driver unmounted and the driver deleted the mount point directory. But when we went to go clean it up, we detected, the mount point doesn't exist. I'm not going to clean up I'm going to be done with the cleanup.
Yeah. Okay.
And it didn't go and go further down and clean up the rest of that volume directory.
Yeah. So the linked PR should fix it actually, that one, because it just checks for now mounted. If it's not mounted, then it's gonna go ahead and delete that data, that JSON file that we write in the directory.
Yeah. So I think this PR should fix the issue. We can double check this PR again to see if it's still cleaning up the mount directory, or is it depending on the plugin to delete it? We can double check that behavior. So that was one issue that Jing found. The second issue Jing found was that we have a potential race condition with plugin registration and reconstruction. So, and I think this
Plugin registration again, huh?
Yeah. So the main problem, well, there's two issues. One is that reconstruction is no longer periodic. We only try reconstruction once when kubelet starts up. So if at that time we try it, the plugin is not registered, then reconstruction might not happen for that plugin.
Yep. Yep. I think we cannot make reconstruction periodic without potentially affecting other code. So
yeah, this will be tricky. I think maybe we need to consider something like upon CSI plugin registration or during CSI plugin initialization, we do reconstruction just for that CSI plugin.
yeah, maybe registration could trigger a reconstruction. Is that?
That's what I'm thinking. Just for that plugin.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
We could do that.
We would have to, and basically we would have to like add special casing to the normal reconstruction to ignore CSI plugins.
Can I ask a question? Do we know the circumstance of the restart? Was it a
just any reason? Like
just
kubelet
fine.
crashed.
So there are EtoE
and the
tests.
deregistration doesn't work at that point?
Oh, so it's the deregistration is fine. Well, let's see. There's no deregistration because it's kubelet that crashed.
Oh, so we're talking about a crash. Okay.
Yeah. We're saying kubelet crashed and restarted, and then because I guess the plugin registration happens asynchronously to volume plugin initialization, which is when reconstruction happens, there's a race condition there.
It's not just crash, it could be just the system CTL restart kubelet or something like that. Just somebody restarted the kubelet.
Yeah, for some reason kubelet restarted.
Our EtoE test exercise this code actually. They restart the kubelet.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess this issue might be trickier to solve, but I will talk to Jing and see if we can come up with something.
Cool.
I think this bug is actually what's causing the reconstruction test to fail like all the time. Once this is fixed, then we'll still have the issue where the reconstruction tests are flaky because of this. So we'll see. All right. The rest of these, let's see, these two items I think are Patrick's items. He's doing a bunch of refactoring, and this is all part of that. And then Hamat, you added a item.
Yeah, just a small one. Like I'm seeing the leader election arguments timeout. So should we like kind of standardize on like the command line, like the tunables that each of these external components accept? Like, do we have any like I could copy what external attacher does, and that's what I was thinking. But like,
yeah, I think it would make sense to have common parameters. I think our challenge now is now that we're 1.0, it's harder to just change the argument names if they were already inconsistent. But we could potentially we could look into deprecating stuff, and I think that's fine.
Okay, yeah, I just think of copying some of the argument that external attacher uses, including the name, so that the resizer attacher has same arguments for the most part. If there's no objection to it, then that's fine. We'll go ahead that route. If there was like some external library that we could write, maybe that could facilitate some of the other bits, that'll be helpful. But
yeah, so we have a new repo CSI lib utils, and this is intended to where there's common code between all of the sidecars. So I think we're thinking of putting all the RPC connection stuff in there. So that might work with the timeout stuff. If there's common leader election stuff, we can also consider putting that there.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think the leader election should be common between all this. Like at least the modules that do leader elections, so it should be common between attacher, provisioner, resizer, probably.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
So we also need the leader election for the external snapshotter. We actually have a PR pending because we're waiting for this change for the provisional leader election. I thought they're going to change to use lease instead of endpoint subs. Waiting for that change.
Do you know who's working on the change to change the leader election?
I thought Matt was working on that. Matt Wang was working on that. I thought that's how I remember, but I don't know the status.
Oh, okay.
And,
maybe
so for that reason,
Haman, could you sync up with Matt on that?
Yeah, we'll talk to him. Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
I think the idea was to do the per PVC leader election, but I'll talk to him and see if, yeah.
All right. So let's see. Those are miscellaneous items. Do we want to start going into 114 items or not?
Maybe I have to run, but people can review that section and make sure that they know what they're working on, and if there's anything that you're blocked on, bring it up at the next meeting.
Sure, sounds good. Yeah. If you're working on something for 114, add it to this section here, and we can maybe start going through it next meeting.
Will do.
All right, take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.